Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with fried bologna banh mi bites. That's right, this one bite banh mi is based on the world's most underrated sandwich, which of course is fried bologna on white bread. And while I really don't care who wins the game, I do care who wins best food at the party. And if you make these, that will be you. And to get started, what we'll do first is julienne some carrots and some daikon radish, which sounds a lot harder than it is, probably because of the French word, but all it means is cutting vegetables into small little matchsticks. And what we'll do after tasting the tip of the carrot is cut a few sections the exact length we want to fit over our bologna piece. And then to do this safely, we will cut a piece off the side so that we can turn our carrot and have it sitting on a nice flat base so it doesn't move while we're slicing it. And then all we need to do is cut straight down like this, every 1/8 inch or so, or maybe even a little less. And then to finish our julienne, we will stack up a few slices, and we will cut it across lengthwise. And if we move our knife over the same distance as the width of those slices, we should end up with some very uniform pieces. And by the way, this would be a great time to tell you, we absolutely do not need perfectly uniform pieces. But visually it is nice if they're somewhat close. So that's how we're going to julienne our carrots, and then we'll do the exact same thing with some pieces of daikon, which, by the way, is easy to find in stores these days. But if you can't, regular large radishes will work. And yes, it definitely takes longer to do this by hand. But the good news is, a little bit's going to go a long way. So even if you cut very slow and carefully, this still shouldn't take you very long. But having said that, if you want to take a shortcut, you can definitely use a vegetable slicer. Or if we need to do a lot quickly, we could even use a grater. And if you haven't done it before, you might be surprised to learn it is actually very relaxing and kind of fun to cut vegetables like this. And if you want to improve your knife skills, this is a great way to practice. But anyway, you decide. I mean, you are, after all, the QB of your fried bologna banh mi. But no matter what method you use, once those are cut, we'll transfer those into a bowl. And then besides our carrot and radish, I think we should also use some English cucumber, which I've cut into the same shape, as well as some thinly sliced jalapeno. And then we'll finish up with some fresh cilantro. And that is going to be it for our vegetation. And once that's set, we can move on to the base, which is going to be a slice of baguette, spread with a spicy hoisin mayonnaise, which we will make by adding some hoisin to some mayo, plus as much sriracha hot sauce as we see fit. And personally, I do think these should be on the spicy side. But of course, adjust that to your taste. And that's it. Once we have that mixed up, we will set it aside. And we'll grab one standard loaf of baguette. And after cutting off the end, we'll make slices straight across every 1/4 inch or so. And I guess if you wanted, you could toast these slices before applying the mayonnaise. But generally, the banh mi's I've had have not been toasted. And I think the untoasted bread actually works better here, since the crunch is going to come from the veggies. But anyway, once our bread is sliced, we'll go ahead and spread that with our hoisin mayonnaise, and then arrange that on some kind of serving plate or platter. And then what we'll do once we're ready to assemble these, right before we fry our bologna, is add a couple tablespoons of seasoned rice vinegar to our radish and carrots. And we will toss that until it's evenly coated. And then we'll let that sit for about 10 to 15 minutes, absorbing that vinegar before we use it to top our banh mi. And that's it. We can finally move on to the star of the show, some sliced bologna. And to prep this, all we have to do is cut it in half and then into quarters. And I'm not going to tell you exactly what brand I'm using, but I will give you a good hint. This bologna has a first name and a last name, and it's found in every grocery store. And it has the perfect thickness for frying up for a sandwich. Speaking of which, once that's cut, we'll head over to the stove, where we're going to brown this up over medium-high heat and a little bit of melted butter. And how long this is going to take really depends on how crispy and caramelized you want your bologna. Okay, I definitely do like some nice dark crispy edges, but fair warning, if you go too far and the meat actually burns, it can get a bitter taste. So we do want to be careful and pay attention to that. And I said medium-high heat, but if you want to play it safe, you could back it down more towards medium, which will slow the crisping process and give you a little more time to make your decisions. But anyway, the point is the heat can be turned down. Right, that is just you cooking. And no, they're not all going to finish at the same time. So make sure you're paying attention. And that's it once our bologna pieces are nice and browned, and possibly a little bit crisp around the edges. We'll go ahead and lay that down on our hoisin mayonnaise bread. And if you are using that bologna with the first and the last name, and you're using a fairly standard size baguette, it should just about fit perfectly, with just a little bit of bread exposed, so our guests can see what's happening. And that's it. These are now ready to top with our veggies, which I'm going to place carefully by hand, starting with the cucumber. And then once that's on, we'll top with our carrot and radish, which as you saw was tossed with some rice vinegar. And then after that's on, we'll finish up with some jalapeno, and then our fresh cilantro leaves. And while I'm doing this, let me give you some party production tips. Okay, if you're only going to make a dozen or two like I am, I think it's worth the time to do these individually, since we can put on the exact amount of the ingredient we want, and they're just going to look a little neater and a little more special. But if you're doing lots and lots of these for a big party, this is probably not the way to go. Okay, what we'll do for that scenario is mix all our veggies together, and then just take handfuls and sort of scatter it over our platter. And when our guests pick these up, they should get just about the same amount on top. And anything that falls off or stays on the tray, we will just call that a garnish. Oh, and after I apply the jalapeno, before I put on the cilantro, I do like to drizzle these with a little more sriracha, since as I mentioned, I do like these spicy. Plus that little pop of color makes these even look more enticing. And that's it. We'll finish up with some fresh cilantro. And our fried bologna banh mi bites are ready to enjoy. So let me go ahead and pick one up and go in for the official taste. And yes, we really do want to try to eat these in one bite, which I think they're the perfect size for. And that, my friends, is everything I want in a bite of banh mi. Plus, we have the added excitement of fried bologna, which besides being super flavorful, also features those butter-fried crispy edges. And believe you me, the next time I make a proper banh mi, I'm going to do it with fried bologna. And then the other thing that makes these so incredible is the contrast between the soft, rich ingredients and then those raw, crispy, acidic, spicy components. Okay, if I've said it once, I've said it 1,000 times. Cooking is about contrasts. And this is a perfect one-bite example, which again is really how we're supposed to eat these. If you don't, veggies might be falling off. And after the party, you'll be vacuuming up julienne vegetables. So please instruct your guests to eat these in one bite, which I'm going to start doing now. And of course, if you're just not going to use bologna under any circumstances, that's fine, I understand. You probably read the ingredient label. But the good news is, even if you don't use bologna, I think this idea would still work beautifully for a party, no matter what meat or vegetables you used. But whether you switch things up or make them exactly as shown, these are beautiful to look at and delicious to eat. And I really do hope you give these a try soon. So please follow the links below for the ingredient amounts, a printable written recipe, and much more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.